You're watching Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Mike Morrell, member of the California State Assembly. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Recently, I attended an event where there were two headliners, Mike Morrell, California State Assembly member, and Karl Rove of George Bush fame. I was so fascinated by Mr. Rove's words. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. It was a fascinating speech, and I wanted to get your sense of his words, which are what we're hearing in the public, that the Republican Party needs to adjust.
Yeah, what were some of the key
I love that you're interviewing me.
Well, that you like?
I mean, what I found so compelling is that he really thinks that the quote far-right Tea Party elements of the party are they're really isolating the Republican Party to the extent that they're not. It's tough to find a winning coalition.
Well, I think what he also.
Do you agree? Did you get that message as well?
The message that I heard from him is we have to go to places we traditionally don't go to. That's really what I took away. In other words, we need to reach out in every community. And one of the things that I've done in my district is I've gone places where wherever I'm invited I go, and a number of times I've gotten to events where I haven't been invited.
You know, it's fascinating you say that. He was talking about a member, I believe, a New Mexican congressman, a Republican, who represents an overwhelmingly Democratic district, and he keeps winning.
He keeps winning, yeah.
Why does he keep winning?
He keeps showing up.
He keeps showing up.
One of the things is there also was a guy in Anaheim and Santa Ana years back, about 10 years ago.
Sure.
Majority of the district, he was a Republican, an older white guy, and he would win election after election, but he lived in those communities. In other words, you have a lot of people that go to Sacramento and think that's where the action is. Reality is you have service your constituents. And so I think one thing that happened to me during a campaign is I had one lady who was a Democrat handed me her little paper with a note on there saying, put a sign in my yard, and she says, do you want to know why? And I said, yes, because you know, we kid about the things we believe, and we believe some different things. She just says, because you show up. You know, and so that's what I think.
And we talk about you. I mean, you represent a Democratic district, and you pulled it out. I mean, you won in a very, very tough year.
And in fact, I was fortunate to have a higher percentage of women votes too than any other member of the Republican Assembly on the Assembly side. So I got women's votes across the aisle and Latino votes. So I was fortunate.
Let's talk about realignment.
Realignment, that's a tough subject right now.
It is a very tough subject. We're going to talk with Supervisor John Tavalgione about that coming up. He's Riverside County, and counties are really suffering, as I understand he will say, under the weight of these three nons that are coming into their prisons.
Well, and not talk to the supervisors, but your sheriffs, your chief of police. It is a danger. In fact, there's about 2,700 fugitives on the loose from realignment.
And let's talk about that because, you know, we have on the one hand prisoners going to counties and they're having some overcrowding issues. Then there's the question of a certain group that knows because of realignment, if they commit an offense, they'll go to maybe county jail for a day, if at all, and then get right back out.
Well, birds of a feather flock together. These guys know they can do certain crimes. They can burglarize homes, cars. They can cut their ankle bracelets off, and nothing's going to happen to them. Like you say, if they do get caught, they go to jail, then released 24 hours, like a guy up in Stockton.
Yeah, tell me about that case.
Oh gosh, he was released. He had cut his ankle bracelet off 7 times.
He was a sex offender.
Sex offender, and this is horrible. They call sex offenders, unfortunately, this is the governor's plan, low-level offenders, which this is wrong. He was released from prison for that. He had cut his ankle bracelet off 7 different times.
That offense is called a low-level offense.
He was finally put back in the county jail for one night release. 3 days later, he raped and killed his 74-year-old grandmother, which is
beyond devastating.
Beyond that, we had another little gal in our office the other day who's 14 years old who was raped and beaten by a guy who had 12 prior arrests. And
it's interesting you mentioned the priors because under realignment, priors are not considered in terms of whether you're a 3 non-offender. They just look at the instant offense, and if the instant offense is one of the 3 nons, you go to county jail.
Yeah, correct.
But it's a challenge, sir, as you know, because we do have the Supreme Court order hanging over us.
Yeah, but you know what? Our public is in danger. This young lady was beaten and again raped. Now she's in a wheelchair and she has a speech impediment due to the brain damage, you know. So what I did, I have AB2.
Please, yes.
And what that says is, look, we're going to quit playing around. We got to protect over our citizens, our children. We've got to put these molesters and rapists and sex offenders back in the prison where they belong and throw the key away.
And the key with AB2 is that current law does require sex offenders to register.
Correct.
But the problem is, under the realignment scheme, if you don't register, that's one of the 3 nons, you go to county jail, you're out in an hour.
Now look, whether we have to build new prisons, whatever we have to do, we have to put these guys back in the prisons and keep our streets safe.
Again, what do we do now? I mean, I do feel as if the state has discussed maybe it's time for more prison construction. We have the Supreme Court order.
You know what? We just got to lock them away. Because let me tell you, again, the crime, we're up 15% in these crimes, which
these
is
these
types of crimes
failure register
over the last year and a half in the governor's realignment. And I was astounded on that bill that day that it went party line.
Yeah, I failed to mention, this bill did not make it out of committee.
The Republicans, I just say, did vote for my bill. And the Democrats, unfortunately, for whatever reason, chose to protect those sex offenders rather than our families.
Could it be, sir, that what the Democrats want is a more all-inclusive solution, and so that's what they're, excuse my pun, gunning for?
What their words to me were,
please,
we want to give the governor's realignment a chance to work, which it's been 18 months. And these crimes are escalating.
But it's interesting because I hear Democrats crying about this. I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean, Ted Lieu, I'm sure you know Senator Ted Lieu. He has a bill that it's kind of similar to yours in that if you cut off your GPS bracelet, which most of those are held by sex offenders, that will send you back to state prison. Republican Jim Patterson in your caucus has a similar bill. So those bills are tracking. So Democrats are crying as well. I mean, they're angry.
The only thing is, I don't know how angry they are because mine was about the easiest one out of all those, and yet they turned it down. And that they were getting pressure by the trial attorneys and the ACLU, because those were the only 2 that opposed my bill.
So where do we go from here? I mean, do we now need to tell counties, don't release these people after 24 hours?
Yeah, look at the duty of our elected officials, as well as our safety, is to protect over citizens first. That's our primary thing, not sex offenders. And so we have to put them back in jail or county jail or get them back to the prisons. But the last place they belong is in the streets. And that's essentially what AB2, my bill, is get them out of there and protect over our women and children.
Have you been working with Democrats or senators to try to get this incorporated into a more inclusive bill? Can you?
We're working on them, but I will tell you, I've talked to a couple of assemblymen who have approached me that want
on the Democratic side.
On the Democratic side, who want to work with me.
Okay.
But they want to do it stealth right now.
Okay.
You know, because these things are
those are
party line
negotiations.
votes.
I mean, that's okay.
So we are working towards that. Which I'm happy to get bipartisan support on this.
So what's going to happen over these next 6 months? Because obviously now is the time where there's just a lot of momentum towards realignment fixes.
There's a lot of momentum. Thank you. For that.
It's all good.
The public, by the way, loves my bill.
Right.
There has been a public outcry from the desert to the sea. Right.
Literally.
They want this in California, so this will come. If it's not my bill, it'll be in a form of a bill such as mine.
I mean, at a certain level, you just want it to happen.
It's going to happen.
Right.
You know, I know it'll happen. They will come around to doing the right thing, and it'll be soon.
His name is Mike Morrell. He is a member of the California State Assembly. When we come back, we'll be speaking with John Tavalgione. He is a member of the Riverside County Board of Supervisors, talking about realignment, as well as health care and the 91 extension. My name is Brad Pomerance. You're watching Charter, California Edition. This is Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. Our guest, John Tavalgione, member of the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. And sir, I want to speak with you about federal health care reform. As we know, California has decided to accept federal funds to expand Medi-Cal.
Correct.
That's the program for the poor. The county, as an arm of the state, will be effectuating a lot of that expansion. Where do we stand today on this issue?
Today we stand where the governor has basically put out two options to the California's 58 counties.
Right.
The two options are this: either the state will retain control that's option one. The state will retain control. The second option is that the county will retain control. Counties will retain control, and the counties, each individual counties will have that option. California State Association of Counties has basically spoken out to say that we don't think that the counties want to embark upon the second option of the counties being responsible for the system in itself.
And the reason why that's critical is, as I understand it, for the first 3, 4, 5 years of the expansion, the federal government picks up 100%
Correct.
of the tab for the expanded pool. But after that, they'll pick up 90%, which is still a nice chunk of money.
Correct.
But then the counties become responsible for the 10% if they adopt option B.
That's correct. And the reason the counties are concerned about taking that responsibility of the 10% thereafter is that there's so much diversity among the 58 counties.
Sure.
You know, the majority of the population in California is here in Southern California.
Right.
Then you have all these smaller,
Rural.
very rural counties with less networking, if you will, of health systems in the northern parts of the state. And less ability to implement those systems.
But each county can make its decision. It's not as if all 58 have to come out with the same decision.
That's correct, they could.
So when this expansion occurs, how can someone, one of our viewers, sign up? How are they aware if they are eligible for the expanded Medi-Cal pool? This is not the exchange, I understand. Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
Right. So how does Riverside County, as an example of one of 58 counties, get the word out? You are now covered.
Well, we're already doing that.
Okay.
And most counties have, 55 of the 58 counties have already begun doing that, even pre-Affordable Care Act, as often known as Obamacare.
Yes, yes.
And they've done that through their local independent health plans. And so they've done that through an educational marketing program, where they go out and talk to their, what they call the indigent providers or indigent clients. And it's basically a marketing plan. We do it through not only our county system and our health plans, but also through the Inland Empire Health Plan.
Do you believe that in the final analysis, getting more people insured, be it through the Medi-Cal expansion, be it through the exchanges, will be a net plus?
Over time, it will. It's going to be a learning process for the counties. It's going to be a learning process for the clients. It's going to be a learning process for the doctors, the providers. And it's a very complicated and time-consuming process, but over time, it's probably going to be beneficial.
I want to ask you about another complicated program. That's realignment, prison realignment.
Yeah.
And we know that many counties are struggling to adopt under the new regime, whereby counties incarcerate those convicted of lesser offenses, the 3 nons. A report came out recently that Riverside is getting more AB 109 prisoners than the state predicted. That's caused some dislocation. Talk to me about how this is working in Riverside County.
It's also very, very challenging.
Sure.
AB 109 was originally set up to provide for prisoners when it was originally negotiated. The prisoners that were released early into the system or into our communities, if they reoffended, they were only set to come back into the local county jail system for 3 years maximum.
Right.
That law was not written that way in the final hours of the legislature.
I mean, if there's an enhancement added to the offense, even if it's a 3 non-offense, you could have prisoners in county jails for 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, we've seen those cases. They're rare, but we've seen them.
No, they're not that rare.
Is that true?
They're not that rare
Okay.
when you look at it statewide. Actually, the first week of implementation, almost 24 months ago now, Riverside County had 13, I think a 13-year
I
sentence.
remember that, yes.
Ventura County had a 22-year sentence. County jails are not set up for long-term sentences.
So there have been a lot of moves to fix
Yes.
realignment. I mean, look, no bill's perfect when it's written, and so we're looking towards those fixes. How do we implement fixes while at the same time comply with the United States Supreme Court order that is demanding that we keep our prison population at a certain level?
The legislature is currently working on a bill as we speak to now reduce that time frame and get it back to what was originally negotiated, 3-year max.
Right.
And-
But the flip side then is that means more going to state prison, and it's the state prisons that are under Supreme Court order to keep their jails at a certain level.
Well, there's also something known as efficiency on the state level.
Okay, we've heard of that before.
And so the state needs to become more efficient, just as local government has become more efficient in recent years because of budget times.
And what's interesting, I believe that Riverside itself is under its own federal court order.
That's correct. We have been for a number of years,
Right,
and we've complied with it.
Right, so it gets more complicated as you go county by county. The other issue relating to realignment is the question of those individuals that have been released through state custody into, I'll call it parole. I know that's not the right term.
Probation.
Probation. And the counties are now engaging in a version of probation that they hadn't been engaging in before.
Correct.
So how's that working?
So now they're under our control. They're
Right.
under our supervision.
Right, it's
And-
called post-release community supervision.
Correct. And rather than having a parole officer, they have a county probation officer.
Right.
And part of that probation is treatment, whatever that treatment may be for whatever the offense.
Right.
If they're drug addicts or drug offenders, then we put them into a drug program or mental
But
health
do you
program.
have the programs either running, or do you have the funding for those programs?
We do. Well, two-part question.
Yes.
We have the programs, and we're beginning to get the increased funding. It's never enough, but we're
Right.
beginning to get it. And part of AB 109, especially through Prop 30 that was recently passed, is going to assure that that funding continues.
Now, some very good news for individuals that drive through the Inland Empire.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the 91 freeway. Oh my. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think the 405 is a parking lot for those that live in Los Angeles County,
Yeah.
come on out to the 91 around Corona.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about the great news.
Very
on the
exciting.
91.
Yeah, very exciting. As you know, the 91 through Corona can get very congested, especially at the 15
Yes.
and the 91. We just approved, it's been a long-term process, the expansion of the 91 through Corona, basically from the Orange County toll lanes facility,
Right.
the Orange County line, all the way to the 15. Basically,
That's huge.
that's huge. It's a $1.3 billion project.
Where's the money coming from?
It's coming from a number of sources. It's coming from Measure A funds. It's coming
And
from
Measure A is a
it's our local transportation sales tax.
Right.
It's coming from federal loans, what they call TIFIA loans, which is basically they back it and we
see.
pay it back.
Any stimulus dollars from the old Obama stimulus
No.
plan? No,
No.
that already
Yeah,
passed.
that's already passed.
And so where are we in the process? I mean, I'm
Okay.
sure commuters are begging for
Yeah.
it to start.
All of our environmental process is done. We've just
Got through CEQA?
got through CEQA,
That's
got
a
through
miracle in
NEPA,
itself,
the national,
right.
the federal environmental process. We've awarded we have chosen the contractor that's going through the construction document, final
Sure.
negotiations. And it'll start the end of this year. It'll be a 3-year process. It's going to be a mess for about 3 years through Corona.
But the other good news is, because it's such a long distance, you're going to have a lot of jobs that you need to.
16,200 jobs.
I mean, the county, it couldn't come at a better time.
No, it couldn't
I mean,
come at a
it
better
really
time.
is. So you expect to begin construction 2013, 2014.
Yeah, end of this year,
Okay, and completion?
2017.
So this is happening.
It's happening. It's gonna
Terrific.
be great.
His name is John Tavalgione. He is a member of the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is Charter California Edition. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We're joined by Mike Gardner. He's a member of the Riverside City Council, but for today, we are speaking with him as the chair of California's Seismic Safety Commission. Mr. Chair, good to see you again, of course. What exactly is the Seismic Safety Commission?
Seismic Safety Commission is the state's primary policy recommending body for earthquake safety and recovery.
How did you become a member of the commission and therefore the president or the chair?
There's a spot on the commission for a local government representative. I was recommended by the League of California Cities.
I see.
Was appointed by Governor Schwarzenegger and then reappointed by Governor Brown.
Well, that's good. Bipartisan appointments right there.
So it's pretty nonpartisan
But
body.
still, it's nice to have a Republican appoint you and then
It
be
is.
reappointed by a Democrat. I want to talk to you about the agriculture industry. I've heard the cliche that California is the nation's salad bowl because you think about all the vegetables that are grown up and down the state that without California, we'd have no salad. Even in Riverside County, some serious agriculture, agri-interests in our county. When we think about earthquake safety, so often we're focused upon tall buildings, but the ag industry could be severely impacted by an earthquake, especially if there's an impact to our water supply.
Yes.
So talk to me about that, sir.
Well, the agricultural industry employs tens of thousands of people, and
If not more, I mean, it could be hundreds
yeah,
of thousands.
yeah,
right?
it's huge, and of course it's seasonal, but
Right.
It's more than a $40 billion industry in California, and on top of that, we provide half of the nation's fruits and vegetables.
Right. Salad bowl.
99% of the nuts, and you can take that either way you want.
Hey, that's true. Yeah, well stated.
But agriculture is very dependent on water and electricity. Electricity for two reasons. One, to pump water, but two, particularly for the processing industry or for the confinement industry, dairy herds, feedlots, chicken raising, egg hatcheries.
Sure.
They are very dependent on electricity, and earthquakes, of course, can interrupt electric and water supplies. And so the commission has started looking at how the state can help the agricultural industry prepare for and recover from a major seismic event.
So we think about what needs to be done in terms of our water supply. There had been a water bond scheduled to be on the ballot in 2010. It got pushed. In 2012, it got pushed. Whether it will be on the ballot or not in 2014, we don't know. I know a poll came out recently that indicated that the water bond was losing support. It's early. But as I understand it, part of that water bond was looking at shoring up our levees and other water mechanisms
Right.
to try
Particularly
to prevent a hazard.
the levees in the San Joaquin, Sacramento
Right.
Delta.
Right.
All of the islands in the Delta, which are strong agricultural producers, are below sea level.
Oh my. And think about what happened in New Orleans for
yes.
areas that were below sea level.
Right.
Think about Hurricane Sandy, Manhattan Island, below sea level.
And sitting in a saturated environment like that, if you have strong shaking, there's every likelihood that you will have liquefaction, which would likely cause levees to fail. And that creates a series of problems.
So where is the commission now? Are they looking to bolster the water bond through words or deeds? Where do we stand?
We're not looking so much at the water bond side as trying to turn the paradigm, if you will, from I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Sure.
I will regulate you to make things better for you. To I'm from the government. What can we do to help you because you know your business?
And so have those discussions started already? I think you have a meeting in Monterey coming up.
It's just happened.
Oh,
the
good.
meeting in Monterey.
Terrific.
It was very successful, I thought. And
What
one
did
of
they tell you?
Well, one of the things that we learned is on the electrical side, a constraining factor is there are very stringent air quality rules applying to portable generators. And it may be appropriate to set things up where those could be temporarily relaxed following a major earthquake.
Sure.
So you can bring in generators to run water
How
pumps
interesting.
or those
So
kinds of things.
Do we need legislation for that?
Probably ultimately we will, unless we'd have to look and see. It may be
Sure.
possible to do that with the governor's order.
Right. Let's talk about other legislation. As you know, in the earthquake that hit Japan recently, maybe a year and a half ago, I would say, 2 years ago, they had an early warning system that, as I understand it, saved a lot of lives. In Mexico, they have an early warning system. It's only 15, 20, 45 seconds, but that gives people time to brace for what's coming.
Right.
California doesn't have one. The New York Times recently, this is how I learned about it, the New York Times of all publications, 3,000 miles away, wrote an article, and the title was Progress Stalls in California on Earthquake Warnings. We're ground central for earthquakes. This is surprising, sir.
Well, it is an interesting topic to talk about. Earthquake early warning systems are very expensive. Estimate is on the order of $80 million.
Okay.
And that's something that's very hard to find right now. There really are two groups working on early warning in California now. And there are two, they're a little more than a pilot system, but they're not fully developed by any means. One is a group of public sector. It includes University of California, Caltech, USGS. It's the scientific side.
Sure.
Have one small system set up. There's also a private sector one that is being developed. And they aren't working together
Why?
now. Well, I think that's a very good question. I think they ought to work together.
And as I understand it, Senator Padilla, a Los Angeles area Democrat, who happens to have a degree in mechanical engineering from MIT, has been looking at and has sponsored a bill related to earthquake alert systems, but yet I don't know how far it's going. I don't know that funding has been attached because, like you said, it could cost $80 million, which, although the budget's looking better, is still a big chunk of change.
It is. Senator Padilla's bill at the moment is focused only on the public sector side.
Okay.
It doesn't address trying to bring in the private sector side. In my own mind, it makes the most sense to encourage the public sector and the private sector to work together, not build two arrays,
Right.
not compete with each other,
So
cooperate.
Can you do something as chair of the Seismic Safety Commission to somehow get these competing interests or arguably complementary interests, to get on board as a unit?
I think that's something for us to look at. We've not yet done so.
At the same time, what makes this even more surprising is that California seems particularly well suited for an early warning system, given that the fault that will likely cause a quake in which we would need an early warning system is the San Andreas fault. It's more inland. Most of the population is on the coast. So we could benefit, like you have told me, if you're right on the epicenter, early warning is not going to help.
Right.
And so with the San Andreas where it is, it seems like a no-brainer.
It could, and there are other large faults that are
Of course.
away from population
there's
centers
one-
like the San Andreas is.
And there's one right through downtown Los Angeles.
Yes.
So there are no guarantees.
But
Where do we stand now on this, sir?
well, I think that the state is moving toward implementing an early warning system. I think that's a good thing. We need to do it. It won't prevent damage. It will save lives,
And
which
that's
is
something to
that's really
remember.
paramount.
Right.
I mean, that's the main thing. Buildings can be replaced. Lives can't.
They can't. And so next step, just continue the conversation.
I think we work through Senator Padilla's bill as
Sure.
it makes its way through the legislature. Very few bills go all the way through the legislature
True.
without a little modification.
Okay. His
And-
name is Mike Gardner. He is a member of the Riverside City Council, also serving as chair of California's Seismic Safety Commission. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is Charter California Edition.